In short, a chakrub is an instrument of pleasure and practice made out of crystal. It's a crystal sex toy. In 2011, I was living in Los Angeles. I moved out there with a boyfriend that I had for about 6 years. I always felt like when I was going to lose my virginity, it was going to be with somebody who I was in love with. And then when it happened with this person who wasn't really my boyfriend at the time, I kind of made a decision to fall in love with him so I would get an inkling of what I wanted. Subconsciously learned that sex was for him, that pleasure wasn't really the priority for me. My pleasure wasn't the priority, and I just disassociated from my body completely. I was in pain emotionally. I was completely lost. And so at 21, 22, I was making this realization of like, holy shit, I'm a quarter of my life done and I don't like sex, and I always thought that I would. And that was important to me. I wanted to. So I ended that relationship and I took a job at an adult shop where I was going to be around people that were really knowledgeable about sex, really sex positive, non-judgmental. So it was one night when I was with my spiritual friend who was living with me, and we went to this woman's house who had this large collection of crystals, and she just brought one out and something clicked within me. And I swear the name Chakrubs just kind of fell into my head. And so I knew that that was what I wanted to do. I moved up to Santa Cruz and lived with this group of musicians, and the women in this group really started feeling like these were powerful tools for pleasure and for purpose. And through that, I moved back to New York and just really started the company, and it's become pretty well known as now it's Chakrubs is the original crystal sex toy company. So crystals get their symbols from many different places. There's the color. There's color therapy, right? So a color like pink is going to have that warm, comforting energy and intention, or something like red is a little bit more passionate, sexual. That's one way that crystals work with symbols. The other way is the shape. Us as humans, we are so sensitive, so depending on what we eat, how much sleep we get, how much stress we're under, our energy changes. But a crystal is very consistent. That's why we use the components of crystal in watches and computers. So particularly with Chakrubs, I encourage the user you imbue it with that intention of I want to remain open to love. So then every time you become aroused and wanting to have a session with the Chakrub, you're reminded, I want to stay open to love. Your arousal becomes a reminder of that intention. So it's just strengthening what you already know and just bringing that to the forefront of your mind and of your life. Feeling crystal energy is like feeling an emotion without like the physical catalyst of like a person. So when working with a rose quartz, it's like feeling that loving feeling without there being a reason other than the physical sensation of the emotion. Crystals facilitate energy movement. The more technology gets advanced and the more used to we become using these tools that prevent us from really connecting to one another, I think the drive to connect and be intimate with others on that deeper level is really strengthening. Like that drive is there underneath this stuff for many people. Working with Chakrubs, it's a reminder to care about what and who you put into your body, where you're actually really observing yourself. You know, I'm thinking about why certain things turn me on or why I can't relax at certain times. And I'm doing this practice that's infusing my world with more self-care on every level. My love of crystals started when I was really young, and I would walk on the bluffs of Long Island with my family, and we would crack open those geodes on the beach, and it was like finding this seemingly ordinary rock but revealing this beautiful crystal on the inside, and that was magical to me. So my love of crystals just, it speaks to that. It's real because that's how I saw it. It was revealing beauty within the earth and just having to look a little bit deeper and reimagine what my definition of magic is. I see Chakrubs more of an art than as a product. I see myself more of an artist than an entrepreneur or whatever. This is something that I feel like I needed to create, and when I created my new line, it was very much an expression of a statement that I needed to get out. So there was the original Chakrub line that was, you know, this kind of shape, pretty standard shape, but then the shadow line started getting a little bit more fetish inspired. The nunchaku. This was a creative piece that I made. Like, that could be spanking, choking, our version of the double-sided dildo. This was a statement piece that I wanted to make that basically meant that a thing isn't spiritual just because it looks in the fashion of spirituality. A thing is sacred when you give it the attention that it is. I do see this as a creative outlet, creating these shapes, and the reason why, the philosophy behind it. You know, I think that's what really turns me on, is understanding why this makes sense and why this is needed. My life always around music. My mother was a piano teacher. She created meditation music. I studied acting for many years, which I think that good actors are really just good at manipulating energy. They know how to conjure up certain emotions, and to me it all makes sense. Music too. Music conjures up that emotion, and that's why people are so drawn to these things. So it all kind of goes into one another and makes sense. So it all ties in. Yeah, I think that we're all walking around with this undercurrent of anxiety about why we're here, and I don't think we know what we're doing on this earth a lot, but believing in things like crystals and spending time to just create love for yourself, it is healing. It helps me with my life. It makes me feel like there's purpose. It makes me recognize the beauty that is ever present, that we just have to look for. But if we just look within, we excavate through ourselves, we can find that inner beauty and that inner peace and find meaning in it all. And also just make love as much as we can.